be a good therapist. So when I first started therapy, I kept choosing therapists that helped me figure out what I wanted to do instead of hearing their advice or their expertise. I wanted the therapist help me figure out things about myself that I couldn't figure out by myself. And so naturally, when I became a therapist, I decided to choose a therapy style that matched what I liked when I was a client. So today, I'll be sharing why I've decided on Gestalt therapy being my main modality as a therapist and how I made that decision. Why did I choose this over other modalities such as cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamics? Why is it Gestalt therapy that I truly believe in? Okay, so how I got to know Gestalt therapy. Basically in grad school, one of our core classes was a Gestalt class, and it was held for our first semester students. And honestly, I might have dropped out of therapy school if I hadn't taken this Gestalt class because I didn't like the other professors or the way they thought about and taught therapy, but Gestalt seemed very much aligned with what I liked in therapy and my value. But anyways, Gestalt usually isn't a class that's taught in class in a school in the US, and why our school had it was most definitely because our school has a history and a connection with Echelon Institute, which is where the Gestalt originator, Fritz Perls, taught for like 30 years. So Fritz Perls taught at Echelon. Echelon was connected to my grad school, and that's why at my school, there's a connection to Gestalt, and there's a lot of professors there who teach Gestalt. I took a Gestalt class, and I noticed how different those classes were compared to my other classes. And it's definitely because of how the professor held that class. It was, one, much less hierarchical. The professor never shut down anyone because they were a professor, and whatever student's idea or experience was less than the professors because they were like higher up. No. The professors always own their own experience as just their own, nothing more, nothing less. And the students is also just their experience, nothing more, nothing less. Yes, maybe the professor has been teaching therapy and being a therapist for decades, but that doesn't discount the student's experience and their opinions, basically. That was one big difference that I really liked. And then the second one was that there were a lot of experientials, which are basically exercises that we do instead of lecture. So a lot of my other classes like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamics was lecture. Like the professor would be like, okay, here are slides. This is the definition of this word. This is a theory. Okay, this is a case study. And we would like go through all of that. Great, I'm learning things in my head, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be a better therapist in a session. For example, when we were talking about being in contact with a client, we're doing exercises on different ways of contacting a client. Contact in this case means like being with a client. It doesn't mean like physically like contacting them, but like being with. So focus in on what's happening in the present moment. That's all Gestalt is. What is happening in the present moment, increasing your awareness, which increases choice. But anyways, it was a lot of exercises, and I thought that was so great because I really think that like to be a good therapist is definitely not memorizing and knowing the different theories. And so I thought Gestalt therapy was great because it wasn't teaching me knowledge that I could read out of a textbook. It was teaching me things that would actually help me be a better therapist. What makes Gestalt therapy different from the other modalities? So I'm going to explain some key concepts or like themes of Gestalt therapy. One is it's always focused on the present. The here and now is what they call it. Basically, as a Gestalt therapist, I'm not going to try to pull the conversation towards your past or your childhood like psychodynamics might. Psychodynamics really focuses on how childhood experiences and your history with family dynamics impacts you as an adult. No, I'm not really going to do that. I'm really focused on what's happening in the moment with the client, with me, whatever happens when we're both there together at the same time. And that means I'm not going to bring forward a topic that I think the client should talk about. I'm not going to go and be like, hey, I think today you mentioned that thing last time, so I think we should talk about that. I think that's really important. No, I'm not going to do that. If the client wants to talk about whatever is important to them, whatever we say is like whatever is most forefront to them in that moment, that is what we're going to explore. I know some Gestalt therapists aren't like that and they bring in their own curiosities. That's just how I do it. The second key concept is emphasizing awareness and choice. So like I said, the biggest thing with Gestalt is to increase our awareness so that we have more choice in the world. And it seems really simple, but it's quite profound in my opinion, because when we become more aware of ourselves and what is going on in the moment, we're able to have more choice about what we want to do. So maybe you're thinking that you identify as a very reflective and introspective person. You're wondering how this type of therapy is going to help you. Well, typically I experience in people who identify as like introspective as very aware of their thinking that happens, the stories that they tell them, connecting them back to other experiences in their life. But they are less aware of like the somatic parts of what's going on in the very moment, or the emotional parts of what's going on in the very moment. And so awareness isn't just about like thinking through what's going on. We call that, whatever, I'll talk about that one. Thinking through what's going on, that's just one component of awareness. There's lots of different things happening in the very second that we're talking. Like I'm noticing that my shoulders are like a little tilted this way and that my feet are like weirdly positioned right now. I am not very stable on the ground. And yet when I'm talking, I'm sounding energized and I'm like, whoa, let's talk about this and that. But really my body is doing some weird stuff right now, probably because I feel a little uncomfortable talking in front of the camera. But awareness is all about noticing all the different components of what's happening in the moment. And like I said, one of that is thinking, one of that is somatic, another part is like emotional or like what's happening internally within me. So yes, all that is to say, there's a lot that happens in one little second. And in Gestalt therapy, we take things really slow. We may break it down to a minuscule size. I just think it's great because I've had experiences in therapy where like the therapist is like, oh, well, this is the reason why you behave in this way. And I know, okay, great. I know why I'm like this, but that doesn't help me change my behavior. So I always felt stuck, like it doesn't matter that I know why I'm doing this. I need a different type of experience. And I felt like Gestalt helped me with that. Why Gestalt resonates with me as a therapist. So one is that I really like how focused it is on client empowerment. It's all about how can we as therapists support the client in finding their voice and meeting their needs. That's really important to me. Two is the focus on authenticity. So not only is the therapy there to help the client like be more of themselves, it's also a place where the therapists can be themselves. And then lastly, I've kind of mentioned this already, is the non-hierarchical approach. It's about co-creating the space together. It's not about me being the expert it's really about like us together, what we can do, what happens together when we're both there. That's it for today. Thank you so much for spending the time to watch all of this. My little kitty says bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, or I'd love to hear your therapy style in the comments, whatever you do. If you do Gestalt, if you don't, why you chose that path versus all the other different types of modalities there. Anyways, I'll talk to you later.